Federal government announces reduction in pump price of petrol.
The reduction will be from 97 naira per litre to 87 naira per litre, and this will be effective as of midnight, Sunday, the 18th of January 2015.
President Goodluck Jonathan joins Nigerian pilgrims to thank God for a successful 2014 Christian pilgrimage as other Christians pray for success of 2015 elections. Political parties canvass votes as campaigns gather momentum across the country. What are civil society organizations doing to bring about credible elections next month? Well, about 7 hours ago, the pump price of premium motor spirit, also known as petrol, was reduced from 97 naira to 87 naira per litre. And that reduction is about 10.31%. Now, the Petroleum Resources Minister, Mrs. Alison Madweke, who made the announcement, called for proper monitoring to ensure compliance. Now, what is the implication of this for the citizens and the economy? Also, we shall be continuing our build-up series to the 2015 elections. And today, the role of civil society organizations, for short CSOs, in the successful conduct of elections is our focus. Globally, increased recognition of the relationship between credible elections and credible governance processes has given rise to increased demands for freer and more credible polls. This has brought about election management bodies being more in greater focus, and throughout the world, the active participation of civil society organizations has been widely acknowledged as significant in deepening and consolidating the democratic experiences of nations. In Nigeria, civil society organizations have contributed not just in the expansion of the democratic space since 1999, but also in pushing for institutional reforms in the political and electoral processes. The active participation of all stakeholders, therefore, is very important, especially in voter education programs, participation in election observation, engagement in the registration process, as well as participation in various post-election activities. With less than a month to the presidential election, and indeed the other elections scheduled for next month, what are the CSOs doing to ensure that the elections and others are free, fair, and more credible than the previous elections that we have had? So these two issues will be the topics of our conversation this morning, namely the reduction of the pump price of premium motor spirit, also known as petrol, from 97 naira to 87 naira, as well as the role of civil society organizations in helping to deepen our democracy through ensuring free, fair, and credible elections. My name is Kingsley Osadolo, and it's my pleasure in welcoming you to today's edition of Good Morning Nigeria, which is reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. My colleague Claire is caught up in the traffic gridlock on the axis that she fondly refers to as MNK, which is the Mararaba-Iyanyan-Karo axis, coming in from the Nasarawa end of the Federal Capital Territory. We do hope that she joins us in the course of the program. As usual, we'll be having our companion segments, business news, newspaper review, sports, as well as arts and entertainment and foreign. In the meantime, I'm going over now to the newsroom to join Ronke Kolawole for the news at 7. Ronke?
Thank you, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigerians. Petroleum Resources Minister Dezani Alison Madueke has announced a 10 naira reduction in pump price of petroleum motor spirit, also known as petrol, from 97 to 87 naira per litre, with effect from 12 midnight of Sunday, 18th January 2015.
Petroleum products, particularly crude oil, over the last few months. Invariably, this has meant that the price of the products in Nigeria has also been greatly impacted. It is as a result of this that under the approval and directive of Mr. President, and in line with Section 6, Clause 1 of the Petroleum Act, that it is my responsibility as the Minister of Petroleum and my delight to announce today that there will be a reduction in the pump price of petroleum or premium motor spirit by 10 naira. Therefore, the reduction will be from 97 naira per litre to 87 naira per litre, and this will be effective as of midnight, Sunday, the 18th of January 2015.
President Goodluck Jonathan joined other Nigerian Christian pilgrims to the Holy Land for the 2014 pilgrimage to give thanks to God for a successful pilgrimage. The First Lady, Dame Patience Jonathan, read the first lesson of the Bible, while the second lesson was read by Pastor Kennedy Okpara. The preacher, Pastor Samuel Peters, centered his message on the sovereignty of God.
He can do it again. That's the God I'm talking about here. You see, not people try to play God and want to dabble into the sovereignty and the supremacy of God. He comes to show himself.
Prayers were offered for the upcoming general elections in the country, for God to take preeminence and for peace to reign before, during, and after the election. The Nigerian Programs Board later presents a gift to President Jonathan for being a pillar of support over the years. Nigerians have been admonished not to be too apprehensive over the forthcoming elections, as it will be free and fair, since the faithful are praying. The Anglican Bishop of Nsukka Diocese, Right Reverend Aloysius Agbo, gave this prophetic utterance during a special prayer service for the country at St. Peter's Anglican Church at Sokoro, Abuja.
As a country is currently facing a lot of challenges which to some people are unsurmountable. But these challenges through Jesus Christ are surmountable.
Still on the election, the All Progressive Grand Alliance Abuja has reaffirmed the party's support for the re-election of President Goodluck Jonathan come February 14. It was at the special rally held by Abuja in Onitsha, attended by President Jonathan and the People's Democratic Party campaign train. Leaders and members of the party trooped out to welcome the president to Onitsha and show their support and solidarity for the Jonathan Sambo ticket in the coming presidential election, as Abuja, in honor of President Jonathan, did not field any presidential candidate from the party.
Every nook and cranny of Anambra State, that Abuja is supporting President Goodluck Jonathan 100%.
Overwhelmed by the support, President Jonathan urged the members of both parties to eschew violence even in the face of provocation, but to show love to one another.
On behalf of my party leaders, on behalf of our wives, we thank the Abuja family for that support. We know that as far as Anambra is concerned, the presidential election day, there is no difference between Abuja and PDP.
While in Onitsha, the president paid homage to the Obi of Onitsha for royal blessing for his second-term bid. He also paid similar visit to the Obi Obianugu in Owerri, where he received royal blessing and total support. President Jonathan also received same support from the Ozubigbo II of Owerri, Eze Njemanze. Still on election, the presidential candidate of the APC, General Muhammadu Buhari, says if elected next month, his administration will tackle insecurity, corruption, and address the unemployment among the teeming graduates in the country. General Buhari stated this when his campaign team visited Lafia, Nasarawa State. Addressing the crowd, General Buhari says several approaches will be explored in the fight against insurgency and other crimes so as to keep the country safe, and that anti-corruption agencies will be strengthened to fight corruption. He says industries and small-scale enterprise will be encouraged and strengthened to boost entrepreneurship. You're watching the news segment of Good Morning Nigeria. It is now time to go on break.
Chifugo, why you dey happy like this today? My brother, Shopee Graduate Internship Scheme has just offered my daughter placement for the next 1 year.
Even me, Shopee give me chance to learn better handwork for Shopee Technical, Vocational and Educational Training Program.
Shopee even has Women and Youth Empowerment Program to help them become financially independent.
Chai, when I finish this my training, I go open my own workshop. Need to go become very big oga like you.
Shopee, delivering service with integrity.
Thanks for being there and stay on the election. The People's Democratic Party, PDP campaign organization, has called on the presidential candidate of the All Progressive Congress, APC, General Muhammadu Buhari, to brief Nigerians on his health status. The Director of Media and Publicity of PDP campaign organization, Femi Fani Kayode, stated this while briefing journalists in Abuja.
The rumor that he is suffering from prostate cancer is exceptionally worrying, and it is incumbent upon each and every one of us to pray for him if this rumor is true, that it is vital that we have full disclosure about the status of his health. This is made all the more important given our recent history.
And in response to the call to make known his health status to Nigerians, the All Progressive Congress presidential candidate, General Buhari, says he's physically and mentally fit and will not be distracted by what he described as figment of lies against his health. The candidate stated this while addressing the media in Abuja.
The day after tomorrow in 2 more states. I'm doing 2 states per day. How they got the impression that I was sick, I don't know. Of course, I got cold, and that didn't stop me going through my shadows.
How would you describe your state of health in 1 word?
One, how old are you?
50.
Just tell me.
50.
50. I'm telling you, if we go to the field, you wouldn't last. You wouldn't last the time I would last in the field.
The Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity has reacted to what it described as phantom allegation on social media by APC spokesperson Malam Garba Shehu, where he alleged that an official of the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President posted some comments on social media suggesting that government would rather hand over power to the military rather than to General Muhammadu Buhari in the event that the APC candidate wins the election. A statement by Dunyo Okukwe denies that the comment was never made by anyone in his office, emphasizing that the claim is absolutely mischievous and malicious, adding that Dunyo Okukwe has never associated himself with thoughts or actions which run contrary to the tenets of democracy, rule of law, and the rights of Nigerians to freely elect those who govern them. As part of efforts to ensure rancor-free polls, the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Youth and Student Matters has joined youth in Nasarawa State to engage in robust dialogue and shun violence for a successful election. Senior Special Assistant to the President on Youth and Student Matters, Judy Magwe, stated this at a town hall meeting in Lafia. That's it on the news for now. We now go back to Kingsley for the continuation of this program. By the way, Kingsley, what do you think will be the implication of this reduction in the price of petrol in Nigeria?
Very well, okay. I mean, that's a simple, straightforward question. Namely, the prices of petrol, let's say the price of petrol, official price of petrol, has come down. So if it costs you so much to top up your tank in the past, now it will cost you at least 10 naira less for every litre. Now I was talking about prices because oftentimes we have differential pricing in different parts of the country. But those are issues that we're going to be raising with our guests in the course of the program this morning. But clearly, it's a reaction to occurrences on the global oil price market where prices have collapsed, and benchmarking this, of course, is quite useful. And it's also very heartwarming. Nigerians always protest against increases. Now here's a reduction. What will be our reaction? I think the reaction should be one of smiles, at least in the meantime. Ronke?
I realized that in Nigeria, what goes up never comes down. So let's hope that for the first time, maybe that will happen. Maybe Nigerians will follow and obey the rule of gravity.
Well,
I'm expecting the reduction to affect everything. When we get to the market for things cheaper and for even house rents to be better.
Very well. I mean, we'll see. We'll watch out for the knock-on effect of the reduction in the pump price of petrol. Obviously, I mean, if the prices had gone up by now, probably all other prices will also have been affected. Good point you made there, Ronke Kolawole, and thank you for the news at 7 o'clock. We are taking a break, and when we return, we go ahead with our business news package.
The time has come once more for us to make the right choice. We did it before. We can do it again. Let us lay aside our differences and think about Nigeria. Let us vote for Good Luck Jonathan again.
Vote Good Luck Jonathan and Namadi Sambo for President and Vice President 2015. Vote PDP.
This message is brought to you courtesy Transformation Ambassadors of Nigeria. Done for one vision, Nigeria.
Sweet, 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 sweet.
Pure premium quality granulated sugar. So sweet and delicious. It will make you even more
sweet, 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 sweet.
Pure finest quality vitamin A enriched sugar. Manufactured to the highest global standards, just for your enjoyment. Pure sugar, how sweet it is.
Okay, thank you for rejoining us. And if you're just joining us, this is Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are going on now to our business package, where Seun Ogunloye tells us that Nigerian industrialists are contending that the sector remains a viable option for the country in the season of dwindling global oil prices.
Very good morning to you. You're welcome to the first business news this week on Good Morning Nigeria. My name is Seun Ogunloye. The International Monetary Fund IMF Managing Director Christine Lagarde said a sharp drop in oil prices and a stronger U.S. economy will probably not be enough to brighten the outlook for global economic growth this year. The IMF boss said while cheaper oil would help consumers in most of the world, the U.S. would likely be the only major economy this year to buck a trend of weakness in investment and consumption. In a speech that previews an IMF report due this week on the global economic outlook, Lagarde said the Eurozone and Japan remain at risk of settling into a long period of weak growth and dangerously low inflation, while the specter of deflation, a nightmarish scenario of falling prices and wages, remains a risk for Europe. Meanwhile, Nigerian industrialists say the sector remains a viable option for Nigeria as the global oil prices continue on a downward trend. Believing the continuous fall on the global prices of crude oil is a blessing in disguise for Nigeria, the immediate past national president of the Nigerian Association of Small-Scale Industrialists, Chukwuachukwu, says opportunities abound for the biggest African economy to be self-sufficient with less dependence on oil. Chukwu says the injection of the 220 billion naira intervention fund into the development of the micro, small and medium enterprises by the federal government was a well-calculated attempt to cushion the economic effect of drop in crude oil price, a major source of revenue for the Nigerian economy. It says the Nigerian Association of Small-Scale Industrialists is strategizing with its development partners to ensure that its members have access to the fund.
Part of the biggest problem that small scalers have always had is access to finance. But NASI, in collaboration with our development partners, Raw Materials Development Council, SMIDEN, Bank of Agriculture, Bank of Industry, NASENI, we're coming up with a holistic product that will actually put clusters in every local government area. Now, what does that mean? It simply means that in every local government of the 774 urban, there will be a cluster. And in each cluster, there will be 100 industries producing based on the raw material content in that particular locality. So we're going to produce to bridge the gap between the domestic the import and the domestic consumption. We're also going to produce for export. So we're going to now turn around to earn foreign exchange.
It says it is high time Nigeria tapped into opportunities accompanying the falling oil price.
There's so much to do within the corridor of West Africa sub-region. You have a population density of over 300 million people. If Nigeria can even capture 5% of that, we're home and dry. And again, it isn't that we don't earn money from export through small scale. It's not that these are not tracked. Now CBN can put an instrument to track these things by actually creating an import-export destination for our countries.
Finally, on the business news this morning, indications have emerged that the brunt of last year's market decline was borne by large capitalized stocks, even as investors begin to take position for the new year. The Director General, Nigerian Stock Exchange, Mr. Oscar Onyema, will disclose these, said capitalized stocks were the best performers in 2014. He explained that small capitalized stocks recorded a 32.78% growth rate, followed by mid-cap stocks, which were up 23.53%, signifying the brunt of the market decline was borne by large cap stocks, down 21.43%. Speaking on the outlook for the year, the exchange boss said Nigeria's 2015 macroeconomic performance is expected to be influenced by a number of variables, including crude oil prices, foreign exchange movements, national security, global financial markets, fiscal and monetary policies, as well as the outcome of the 2015 general elections. The Nigerian Stock Exchange closed the year with 6 new equity listings, 2 on the main board, 1 on ASEM, and 3 ETFs, while the bond market recorded 12 new listings with a slight dip in the value of new issues. The NSE was admitted as a full member of the World Federation of Exchanges WFE and Phase 1 of the West African Capital Market Integration. The exchange also made history by becoming the first African stock exchange to join the International Surveillance Group ISG and welcome a new president and 6 council members to its national council. And that's it on the business news this time. Thanks so much for watching. The rest of Good Morning will continue.
All right, thank you very much, Shehu Ogunloye, for the business package. Now we are taking a short break. When we return, we proceed with our newspaper review segment. Okay, as usual, we have the Good Morning Nigeria newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebi, right here with us in the studios. Bayo, welcome to this edition.
Thank you, Kingsley. Yeah. Good morning, Nigeria.
Well, I had announced at the commencement of the program that Claire was caught up in traffic at the MNK axis. It's a gridlock on both sides of the freeway, 6 lanes the other way, she told me. So we are hoping that she joins us on the course of the program. Now, a story that is common to all the front pages that we have has to do with the slash in the pump price of premium motor spirit, also known as petrol. And that's the story that is the lead for the Nigerian pilot. Fuel price now 87 naira per litre. Details to be found on page 4 of the Nigerian pilot. Also below the name flag of the Nigerian pilot, Emir Sanusi demands jungle justice for insurgents. Details on page 4. And promoted also on the front page is a story that says Jonathan will win again. That's attributed to a U.S. report. Details to be found on page 5. Now, another story on the front page there of Nigerian pilots has a kicker. Boko Haram. Army removes GOC of 7th Division. GOC stands for General Officer Commanding 7th Division, and sends more fighter jets. Now, on the front page also of Nigerian pilots are the following promotional headlines. I'm not sick, Buhari insists. Details to be found on page 5. Aviation workers strike may ground flights today. Details on page 4. And suicide bomber kills 6, injures 48 in Potiskum. Details on page 6, and to be found in greater detail on page 7. It's a story that says strike. Federal government judiciary workers meet today. And also on the front page of the Nigerian pilot, gunmen kill 100 vigilantes in Zamfara. Those are the stories from the Nigerian pilot. The next paper, of course, will be The Guardian. And the Guardian has also as his lead story, why government cut petrol price to 87 naira per litre. It has a rider, denies political consideration. But the paper also has a sidebar that tells us about the history of fuel price increases in Nigeria. So for researchers, that you can find that particularly useful on page 4. That's a sidebar to that lead story. Now, on the front page also, just beside the photograph on the front page, they are showing the president and the musician known as Daddy Shoki and others at the State House Aso Villa yesterday. It's a story that says APC and PDP bicker over Buhari's health. APC, PDP bicker over Buhari's health. Now, Boko Haram kidnaps 80 in Cameroon. Details to be found on page 8. Boko Haram kidnaps 80. Details to be found. Kidnaps 80 in Cameroon. Details to be found on page 8. Now, National Grid gets 220 megawatts from Egbe Power Facility. Details are on page 8 from The Guardian. Now, the next paper I will take very quickly will be Vanguard. Vanguard also has as a front pager, just below the name flag, Jonathan crashes price of petrol to 87 naira a litre. Details to be found on page 15. And Lagos on red alert over bird flu. Details to be found on page 9. But the lead story says, I'm hale and hearty, still in Nigeria. I'm hale and hearty and still in Nigeria. That's General Muhammadu Buhari, and there are 3 riders to that lead headline. Declares air on health, certificate, PTF, and foreign trip, and accuses PDP of playing politics of desperation. And PDP bent on inciting hatred against Buhari. That's according to his campaign organization. Details are to be found on page 9. Now, Egbe Power Plant rehabilitated to produce 220 megawatts. I read that story, that headline earlier from The Guardian. It's also on the front page of Vanguard. Details are on page 11. Now, this is Apapa traffic gridlock. That's the kicker. Rents crash by 50% as businesses and residents relocate. Details to be found on page 21. Apapa traffic gridlock. Rents crash by 50% as businesses and residents relocate. And then I will take Daily Trust. Daily Trust is, it also has a number of copies that were taken straight away. Just below the name flag of the trust. Presidency, that's the kicker. No plan to hand over to military. Details are on page 5. And federal government reduces fuel price to 87 naira per litre. Details are on page 4. But the lead story of Daily Trust on the front page says, Buhari, that's the kicker, reports on my health, not true. Buhari reports on my health, not true. Now, you see on the front page there also, that's at the foot of the front page, bomber kills 8 in Yobe as Boko Haram seizes 80 in Cameroon. But the front page photograph of Daily Trust is quite instructive. It's an AFP photograph. It's a banner that says, "Stop Boko Haram." It says, hash Je suis Nigerian and bring back our girls. Stop on Boko Haram. It's demonstrators. It's a photograph of demonstrators calling for a stop to Boko Haram attacks during the gathering in Paris, France yesterday. So that poster and the photograph, as well as the banner, of course, taken from a demonstration in Paris yesterday in support of efforts against Boko Haram. Bayo, just before you come on, let's take very quickly the union. The union has similar story. You know, FG reduces pump price of petrol by 10 naira, and the union says PTF fraud and certificate. That's the kicker. Buhari can't hide, according to group. 2 civil society groups say if General Muhammadu Buhari is to be taken seriously on his touted integrity, he must answer questions on PTF fraud and also show his original certificates. Now, on the front page there, that's the promotional copies at the foot of the front page of the union. Execution of Nigerian. Federal government summons Indonesian ambassador. Details are on page 3. And of course, there are all kinds of other stories. There are future bright for Super Eagles and Unamani seeking to reclaim his Senate seat, as well as investors worry over delay of Enugu Free Trade Zone. Bayo?
Thanks.
Yes.
Well, the highest news now in the nation is the reduction of petrol pump price from 97 naira to 87. But one is not sure whether they have been effected at the dispensing stations across the country. You recall that throughout the history of petrol pump price in Nigeria, this is the second time we have seen a reduction. During the tenure of President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, there was a reduction to 66 naira. And
75 to 65.
From 66 to 65 naira. This time from 97 to 87. The irony of it all is that in all instances where there have been increase, almost at all filling stations, the alteration at the pump price have been very simultaneous immediately. But whenever there is a reduction, there is always this reluctance, and it takes a long time before it is implemented. But there has been instructions to the PPPRA and the Department of Petroleum Resources, DPR, to effect that change. Sadly, there have been several insurgent attacks across the nation, particularly in the northeast. In Gombe, an evening market known as Arawa Market saw a suicide bomb, killed 5 people and injured about 40. This was just 3 days earlier, where another market called Kaswa Mata, where another bomber was on a motorcycle and he killed 2 people. There is also a Bulama motor park in Potiskum yesterday, where another bomber disguised as a traveler detonated and killed 4 people. Dozens of people are reported to have been injured. In Zamfara, there have been instances of gunmen attacking various villages, and therefore the people are compelled to defend themselves by constituting vigilante groups. Unfortunately, vigilante groups confronted gunmen, and the story there is very sad. About 100 of such vigilante persons have been killed. Also in Bauchi, Toro local government, a soldier and 3 other civilians were killed at a checkpoint. There was an attempt in Adamawa to invade Gombe by the insurgents. This was effectively repelled by Nigerian soldiers. The Emir of Kano, Alhaji Muhammad Sanusi II, has said that people must stop running away from the insurgents and they must stand up to them and defend themselves. You will recall that just last Friday, another suicide bomber was apprehended and chased, and in fact mobbed before the police could rescue him. They suspected that he was carrying guns and explosives, However, when the police went there, they could not locate any arms and explosives, and therefore there is a need to be circumspect so that innocent people are not lynched in such mob action. However, the Emir of Kano, while at a graduating ceremony of Quranic recitation in Auchi in Edo State, said categorically that the Holy Quran abhors kidnapping of young girls, rape, and some of the activities of the insurgents are completely un-Islamic. He says Muslim leaders must speak or be guilty of complicity. We can't keep quiet. We must speak up so that our religion is not distorted. Still on the issues of insurgency, Boko Haram has abducted 80 people in northern Cameroon, particularly in the area called Marwa, which is in the northern Cameroon. Among these are 30 adults, 50 boys and girls with age ranging between 10 and 15. It may also be recalled that the Cameroonian government has sent an SOS to Chad, and the Chadian parliament sat and have sent troops now to support Cameroon in the fight against the insurgency. In the same way, the current chairman of the ECOWAS, Ghanaian President John Mahama, has said that there is need to consider a regional armed forces, and anytime from now, he is proposing to raise a proposal to the African Union to have a regional force that will ensure that the activities of the insurgents is nipped in the bud and not take over the whole of the West African sub-region. Also abroad, there have been instances of terrorism. In Belgium, police killed 2 suspected terrorists who, in their abode, after inspecting, they found that they had armaments, bombs, and fake police uniform, and they had to nip in the bud their attempt to kill policemen. Also, 12 other people have been arrested in France after the Charlie Hebdo attack. In Greece, 3 other persons are also being questioned for suspicion with a link with the Paris attack, while in Greece as well as Germany and Ireland, there have been terrorist alert. Prime Minister David Cameron, while visiting the US President Barack Obama, have all along declared that the measures should be put in place to challenge the poisonous ideology of extreme militancy and intolerance. Charlie Hebdo, there have been reactions to the commemorative publishing of the caricature that is the center of agitation about the satirical magazine in France. They promised to publish 50 million copies, and the initial copies have been the sold out. However, there have been demonstrations in Pakistan, Jordan, Algeria, Niger. In fact, the demonstration in Niger was in Zinder, where 4 people were killed and there were arsons. As at yesterday, there were further demonstrations in the capital, Niamey. However, at the center of all this is that even Pope Francis, while on a papal visit to Manila, has said that, yes, he believes in the value of freedom of expression, but the freedom of expression should not be used to proper disrespect and undermine the religious sensibilities of other people. Pope Francis said that if, for instance, his assistant here were to utter uncomfortable words about his mother, he should expect a punch in the face. The Pope, out of sympathy, also visited the Tacloban, the Philippine city, if you remember, in December 2013, that came under the tropical storm, where over 6,400 people were killed. But ironically, while he was arriving and trying to address them, another tropical storm, Mahala, came and the Pope had to leave. However, yesterday, the Pope was able to conduct a mass in Manila, and it is said to be the largest papal mass, where you had a population of about 6 million attending. Manila has about 80 million Catholics. Kingsley.
Yeah, but I just wanted us to touch briefly on what is happening in Cameroon and Chad, of course, and Nigeria, all involving Boko Haram. 80 persons, as we read in one of the headlines, were kidnapped by Boko Haram. But significantly, Chad, which is sending troops as well as armament to assist Cameroon, we had demonstrations on the streets of Chad in support of their country's resolve and preparedness to assist Cameroon and to flush out Boko Haram from their territory. And significantly, I mean, Cameroonians have not protested that their own soldiers are incompetent, that they cannot deal with Boko Haram. They have received this assistance with a great deal of gratitude.
In fact, there was a request for Chadians to help in fighting the insurgents. Yes. You also recall that the Chadian president, he is the chairman of the current AU Committee for Security for the continent, and therefore that has brought to the fore the concern for the adventure of Boko Haram. Don't forget that just about 2 weeks ago, they announced that they are going to extend their adventure across Cameroon onto Central African Republic, and if something is not done, nobody knows where they are going to end. This is why they have been increased in this. The ambivalence here is that even some of the attacks we have had in Nigeria, some Chadians have been identified as being members of Boko Haram, and therefore the issue of Chad and the role of Boko Haram may be very suspicious as far as Nigerians are concerned. But here in Nigeria too, we have Nigerians who also belong to the Boko Haram, and so we need all, as the current ECOWAS chairman said, the president of Ghana, that unless something is done regionally to combat the insurgency, it has a tendency to spread across the region.
I agree with you. I mean, it's not just a local concern now, it's a regional concern. Let's take a few other headlines from the other titles before we wrap up. Now, Newswatch Times. Newswatch Times has as its lead story, federal government reduces petrol pump price. We read that before. Now, just above the name flag of Newswatch Times, drug, that's the kicker. Anger as Indonesia executes Nigerians and 4 others. Now, there are 2 riders with that. Federal government moves to save 12 others on death row and summons envoy. Brazil and the Netherlands also recall their ambassadors. Those are the riders to that story. Bio, the executions took place over the weekend in Indonesia. There were 2 women who were also involved. One was from Vietnam, another was from Indonesia. Now, let's take the other headlines. Senators pick holes in 2015 budget allocations. Details on page 3. And Buhari denies U.S. trip. Also there, Chad, Niger, Cameroon launch regional force against Boko Haram. Those are the stories that were taken from the front page of Newswatch Times. Now, the next paper will be The Nation. The Nation, just below the name flag of The Nation, federal government slashes petrol price to 87 naira per litre, and Chad, Cameroon join forces against Boko Haram, and sect kidnaps 80 in Cameroon, and 5 die in Potiskum blast. There are also other kinds of promotional stories relating to the elections right there above the name flag. Again, the demonstration in Paris yesterday against Boko Haram is the front page splash photograph of the Nation newspaper. Now, leadership is next for us. Leadership is next. Leadership, of course, has below the name flag, federal government reduces petrol price to 87 naira and queues may resurface. I don't know, by the basis of that. And APC rejects interim government and election postponement. And details are to be found on page 6. Now, the lead story says, February post, that's next month's general elections. Long-term investments suffer major setback. Details are to be found on page 5, and then experts react. Now, you can see on the front page of the leadership, there's a graphic illustration of current crude oil prices, as well as the prices of refined petroleum products in Nigeria, and the timelines. That's the sidebar explaining, indicating when pump prices were increased, at least since the year 2000. The Guardian, I read earlier on page 4, has a detailed version. Now, the front page of Daily Sun, of course, has a wraparound advert, but still takes in the federal government reduction of fuel price to 87 naira per litre. And then Blueprint, of course, Blueprint says strike. Federal government meets Johnson today, and health concern, that's their lead story. I'm okay, says Buhari jog around the stadium if, that's according to PDP challenging Buhari. And then, okay, so Bayo, if it's any other comment, very briefly before we wrap up.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, the concern is about 2 Nigerians who were among the drug traffickers that were executed in Indonesia. Why not condoning drug? But the clemency plea by the federal government to the Indonesian government apparently ended on deaf ears. And among those that were executed were 2 Brazilians, one from Netherlands, and 2 women, one from Indonesia, the other from Vietnam. Our competitors who were involved in this were Solomon Okafo and Daniel Enemo. But the worrying thing is that there are 12 others who are waiting on death row in Indonesia. And is of concern that, particularly in Indonesia, Malaysia, and most of the Southeast Asian countries, offenses about drug trafficking is capital punishment, death penalty, and they are very uncompromising about it. And therefore, our competitors needs to be circumspect. While one is not condoning criminality, they should also know where to foray. But most importantly, the Nigerian government says that they are pursuing the agreement they are having about prisoner exchange. Perhaps this might be an opportunity that will help save some of the 12 Nigerians. Another human interest story that I'd like to draw attention to is that Dr. Stella Ameyo Adadevo has been conferred with a posthumous Doctor of Science degree by the National Open University of Nigeria. The visitor of the university, President Jonathan, says that she sacrificed her life through her heroic action to save millions of Nigerians from the dreaded Ebola. The Vice Chancellor of the National Open University, Professor Vincent Tenebe, said that Dr. Ameyo Adedevo of blessed memory, through you, though you have left us, you lived in our hearts. We are testimonies of the ultimate sacrifice you have paid. Nigeria will remain forever grateful for you. Well, quickly, let's touch on campaign. The campaign trains have been going around, and if I must round up, as you have indicated, there's need to point out that there's need to put control on the spokespersons of the parties, as well as other persons along the party line, because rather than address the issue, there have been a lot of disinformation and misinformation going on. You have heard about the issues of the fact that if PDP does not win election, there will be no handover. Rather, they will prefer to hand over to the military. There have been speculations raised about the health of President General Muhammad Buhari. These are the side issues that are distracting. They are not actually addressing the issues. Although they have all appended their signature to the accord, the peace pact, to make sure that the campaigns are issue-based and less volatile by way of pronouncement, I think there is a considerable need for them to pull back the harness on their spokesperson and other publicity personnel who are actually continuous in hitting up the policy.
Okay, Bayo, on that note, we'd like to thank you. Incidentally, last Friday we had the 2 spokespersons of the PDP presidential candidate and the APC presidential candidate on Good Morning Nigeria. These were issues that we also discussed. Now, with regard to the executions in Indonesia, one of those persons executed was 53 years old. Another was 60 years old, and that tells you a very serious thing. But we'd like to thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria newspaper review segment today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, this is Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We are having 2 topics for our conversation this morning. The first, of course, relates to the slash and the pump price of premium motor spirit, also known as petrol, from 97 naira to 87 naira, as well as the role of civil society organizations in ensuring free, fair, and credible elections. We'll take a break, and when we return, we commence our talk.
Can you remember as a child when you fell and hurt your knee? Your mum was always there to soothe the pain. Can you remember how she lovingly packed your school lunch and proudly stood waving at the door? Can you remember watching how dutifully your mum would stand over the stove and cook your family's favorite meal with a smile on her face? Can you remember when she prepared your favorite meal with bua pasta? Nothing has changed with Boer pasta today, as it's still made the same way Mum always knew, because it's made from the finest wheat and packed with nature's goodness. So share the goodness of Boer pasta with your family. Boer pasta, nothing.
After a dry night in Pampers, babies can achieve so many things. Introducing new and improved Pampers for a dry and comfortable night of sleep, thanks to our new stretchy sides and super gel that absorbs and locks in wetness better than other diapers. So your baby starts the day dry, making every morning one to be proud of. New Baby Dry. Dryness guaranteed or your money back.
It's out. Your #1 indispensable daily companion, TV Guide. This last quarter 2014 edition will simply blow your mind. It's digitization fever in the broadcasting industry. How ready are we? Africast and MIPCON 2014 have come and gone. Lots of lessons learned. Good Morning Nigeria and My Music and I, 2 new scintillating programs on NTA network. Ibrahim Adra from radio to television. He is bringing it. Is the cell phone killing the traditional wristwatches? Find out on TV Guide. Two-Face Idibia and Victor Olaya. The new collaborates with the old. And now on our cover is our own mother of Nollywood, Joke Silva. This auntie next door has so much to say. TV Guide. Buy one and give one to a friend. TV Guide. Available nationwide.
All right, welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria. We are kicking off with our first topic this morning, and that about 7-hour motor spirit, also commonly known as petrol, was reduced from 97 naira to 87 naira per litre. Now, the post-Civil War history of Nigeria has witnessed increases in the prices of refined petroleum products, more in particular petrol. And one of the first noticeable increases, of course, took place in 1973. And as we have also seen in the 1980s, in the 1990s, in fact, in the last 3 decades or so, increases in the pump price of refined petroleum products, in particular petrol, have often occasioned public reaction, and such reactions have been by way of provoking, if not just civil disobedience, but also work stoppages. Now, this is the topic of our conversation this morning, and we are looking at the implication of the reduction that occurred about 8 hours ago. We're having 3 guests to discuss this topic with us. The first, 2 of them we have in the studios right here with us in Abuja. I'd like to welcome Mr. George Osahon, is the Director of the Department of Petroleum Resources. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and then we also have with us here a development economist, Dr. Emeka Okengu. Dr. Okengu, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
And then, of course, joining us from our Lagos Network Center is Mr. Johnson Chukwu, who is Managing Director of Cowries Access Limited, right there on your screen. Mr. Chukwu, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning and welcome. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well. The year is already 19 days old. But we begin with Mr. George Osahon, who is Director of the Department of Petroleum Resources. Yours is the enforcement arm of the industry. Of course, of the dealing with NNPC and then the oil, the other participants in the oil sector. The experience that Nigerians always have is as follows. Whenever there is an increase, assuming it was last night or even before, by this morning, if you went to the various petrol stations, they would have changed the prices on their dispensing pumps. Now, there is a slash. This is the second time we are having this in about 8 or so years. And of course, the experience would be that there might be some reluctance. Oh, we haven't heard. Our manager hasn't come. How is the DPR going to ensure compliance with this?
Well, okay, let me first start by saying that we do not expect that people will react negatively to what has happened. Just like you said, this is the second time they're slashing the price of petroleum product. But from our own end, we have ways of ensuring that people comply, especially the people who operate filling stations, that they comply. The first thing we did was to contact the various associations, MOMAN, IPMAN, DAPMAN. First, to intimate them what has happened, and to tell them that usually these associations have a way of holding on to their members. So we've done that. Then we have other ways of ensuring that people comply. We send our people to the filling stations. Even though you say we're enforcers, I think I like to refer to us as regulators as opposed to enforcers, because we don't have ways of enforcing the thing actually by carrying arms. But what we do is we use our papers to make sure that they comply. But more often than not, when we go to filling station, we have people from the NCDC, other law enforcement agents to follow us. We will use that to ensure that these people comply. But apart from that, they will always come to us one way or the other for some papers, some permits, some licenses. Those are ways by which we ensure that whatever we ask them to do, they do it.
Well, again, the experience also had been, even before the announcement, the announcement became effective 8 hours ago, that we always had discriminatory prices, particularly for petrol, in different parts of the country. Lagos and Abuja and perhaps Kaduna and to some extent Port Harcourt, you can have, yes, now 87 naira per litre, and before midnight it's 97 naira per litre. Elsewhere in the country, the prices usually range from anything from 100 to 150. Now, is this going to hold 87 naira throughout the Federation?
We expect it will hold. The fact that people sell different prices in different parts of the country is not supposed to be the norm. That is why government has PEF, that's Petroleum Equalization Fund, which ensures that anywhere you are in the country, you buy petrol at the same price. But you cannot expect to have everybody obeying at the same time. That's why you have, like you call us, enforcers. We make sure that these people obey. But once in a while, you have miscreants, if you want to call them that, who one way or the other want to ensure that they sell these things beyond the normal regulatory price. And that is why sometimes we have to shut down filling stations, which we do once in a while. But in the last time that this thing happened, we try as much as possible not to increase the pains of people by shutting down as many filling stations as possible. Otherwise, you then constrain those who have, and you have longer queues. But there are ways by which some of those things I'm not likely to reveal now. Otherwise, it's like telling you exactly what our arsenals are and how we are going to control, how do you comply with the new rules.
When do you expect compliance, say in those locations where petrol is sold at the regulated price?
Right away.
Because yeah, go ahead, please.
Because government said from 12 midnight. Don't forget, this will come to us, apply for licenses to bring in petroleum products. When they bring to petroleum products, they go to depots. At the depots, these things are measured. It is a measurement that determines the type of equalization fund they're going to get. So there is no reason for them not to comply, because all these things are known. How much you sold, how much you took, where you took it to, the filling stations. All these things are regulated. So the fact that they bought, I'm sure that's probably going to be the argument. They bought at higher price. Therefore, why should they sell at lower price?
That's right.
Petroleum Equalization Fund is there. You'll be refunded for everything you took, and you're going to be selling at lower price. So this shouldn't be an issue at all.
What is the rationale for the reduction? I mean, it's the second time that Nigerians are having this benefit within a decade. Always what we know is higher prices.
Naturally, with the reduction or with the dwindling or the falling price of crude oil, which is one of the indices you have in determining the price of petroleum products. If you look at it, that thing is supposed to be in public domain. There are several indices, but just one of them is reduced. For example, you bring this in from overseas. You don't reduce the tariff. You don't receive the review import duties. There's tax that is there. So many things are there. One of them is reduced. That is the measure that they use in determining how much reduction is going to get.
No, but this one critical factor that has affected the price by 10 naira, that's about 10.31%, is significant enough. Particularly, I mean, the ordinary person would say, okay, on the global oil market, we are seeing the prices, slashed down to about a fifth or so of the price that, about a third of the price that we had seen in the past. Now, how sustainable is this new reduction?
Well, for as long as we have petroleum, the crude oil price remaining this way, it's going to be sustained. But of course, if it goes back up, naturally things may go back. But don't forget, there's always what we call a lag time between the event and the aftermath. The price of crude oil has fallen now in the last 3-4 months. The first one was a significant drop from about 110 to 90 and so on and so forth. Now, if the price goes back up, naturally, the reaction from government is not going to be instantaneous. We take a look at it, see the trend, see what's going on. How long can this thing sustain before we change anything at all?
Is subsidy embedded still in the new price regime?
In a way, yes.
In what way?
In the sense that if you look at, just like you said, the price of crude oil has gone down by about a third. Yes. It's now a third of what it used to be. What a lot of people would have expected is, oh, why can't we reduce this thing up to about a third too? So that is why I'm saying that all the indices are many. It's only one that has changed. So for us to say when there's an increase, we increase along the same line, it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Sorry, no, I didn't understand this latter part of your explanation.
If the price of crude oil goes up,
yes,
just the same way we have done now, we are going to reduce it by a margin that is directly related to the price of crude oil as an index in the pricing formula. That's what we're going to do.
Okay, but the point you have made is that we still have subsidy even at 87 naira per litre.
In a way, like I said, we have subsidy. Because if you imagine all the things that are input into that pricing formula, all you need to do is ask yourself, what are these indices? And like I said, it's in the public domain. So if you, for example, a man who is operating a refinery, is operating a refinery, all the things that are operating inside the refinery, they will not change. The only thing that is changing is the feedstock into it. But every other thing remains the same. That is why it's going to be difficult for him to also reduce his own price significantly. So if you look at all the things we are doing, you'll be surprised that we're still going to be paying PEF. And that is also open to the public domain. And
that PEF, of course, stands for the Petroleum Equalization Fund. That was established by General Gowon in 1973.
Absolutely.
That's correct. Now, we go over to our Lagos Network Center. I introduced earlier a development economist who is with us at the Abuja studios here. But let's go over to Mr. Johnson Chukwu, is Managing Director of Cowrie Assets Limited, who joined us earlier from the Lagos Network Center. Mr. Chukwu, you've listened to the Director of the Department of Petroleum Resources provide some background and, of course, give some indications as to what the game is with regard to petrol, the price of petrol. Now, what do you make of the new pricing regime for premium motor spirit?
Well, I think I agree with George that there has to be a time lag in terms of adjusting the price of the pump price of petroleum products. The only area where I disagree with him is the issue of subsidy. I think at current crude price that there's no longer subsidy. Even when you add the bridging cost and add the lightning cost and other costs associated with bringing the products to the pump. Basically, if you look at their template as at 29th of December last year, there was an under recovery of only 90 kobo, that is 0.9 naira, 90 kobo, and that was based on an average crude price of about the average crude price as at December 29th was about $58. Today we're talking about crude price in the neighborhood of $46, $48. So if the crude price had dropped by another $10 between the time or they had that updated the template and now, I think if you adjust that template, we shouldn't have any subsidy as at today, even at the pump price of $87 naira. That's an area I think we diverge. So if you look at it, I think even at 87 naira, the government should be talking of over recovery, and then those who have license to bring in petroleum motor spirit should be refunding PPPRA instead of government paying subsidy. I've looked at the bridging cost of 6 naira. I've looked at other costs, like I mentioned, the lightning cost, the traders' margins, the retailers' margins, the trucking cost. If you factor those costs at today's crude price, I think 87 naira will still be above the pump price of petroleum products. So I don't think the government should have any subsidy at the new price.
The implication necessarily from your explanation, for instance, that okay, subsidy should go, and that even the 10 naira reduction doesn't appear to be commensurate with that critical factor, namely the price of crude oil on the international market. Is that what you are suggesting?
Clearly, if you look at today's crude price and you use that to update the template of PPPRA, it is clear that at 7 naira we shouldn't have any subsidy. But I also recognize that the government may have built-in provision that crude price could move northwards over a short period of time, and they may find it difficult to adjust the pump price because of the political sensitivity of moving pump price up. But clearly, at today's landing cost, I don't think there's any subsidy at 7 naira.
Okay, but let's take a look at another factor of our economic life. We know that usually, I mean, since 1973, as we indicated in the introduction to this conversation, Nigerians are very uncomfortable with increases in the prices of refined petroleum products. If we were to benchmark our price of petrol now against the international prices on of crude on the international market, what can you hazard as the likely reaction if tomorrow oil prices now rise? Okay, more revenue comes into the Federation account, but then again the price of petroleum products, particularly petrol, then go up. What would be the reaction?
Well, the issue of price of petrol is both economic and political. On the economic space, you have to look at what happens to the purchasing power and the disposable income of citizens when prices go up. Particularly price of a product that has a pervasive impact on the economy, which is like petroleum products. So if prices go up, you're likely going to see negative reaction by the citizens. And that's always, that's why I say that the government may have built in a lag or a headroom to adjust for any possible increase in crude price, which will eventually happen, because we're already seeing recounts decreasing. We're already seeing new investment in oil and gas exploration decreasing, and a lot of people calling off their planned investment. So you're eventually going to see in the near future oil price moving northwards as supply declines, and even if demand remains at current level. But having said that, it then means that the government must be conscious of the fact that if it drops the pump price to a level that it may be compared to increase it in the immediate future, it may not be in a political position to do that. And I think that's why we have a moderate reduction that now should entitle our Commonwealth, I mean, in this instance managed by PPRA, to have an over recovery and get those who are who have license to import products to pay back the excess above the pump price that they are getting above the landing cost or SDB price that they're getting from the subsidy.
Okay, Mr. Chukwu would like to pause you at the Lagos Network Center now, return to our Abuja studios. Dr. Okengo, you've listened to Mr. Chukwu from Lagos and Mr. Osahon from sitting with us here in the Abuja studios. What's your take on the new price regime for petrol?
What I'm going to try to do is probably get the common Nigeria involved in this conversation by basically explaining what's happening. Let me use the preparation of a pot of soup, okay, which is you're going to make a pot of soup and all your ingredients. Chicken has dropped in price. And because chicken has dropped in price, the cost of making your soup for your customers or that soup pot has reduced. That is what the director of DPR is trying to explain to Nigerians. That it is not only crude that determines the final outcome of the price of your PMS. This is key that we understand it. And that when you talk about PAF, it still says that what you are going to be getting, PAF is still going to be there to be equalizing, okay, whatever differences that has to come with what you now call your market forces. This is not regimented. This is not cast in stone. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is to commend the federal government for this innovation, which of course will not be based on any arbitrary decision to say because it's $50 in the international market, we're going to now remove a third of it. No, that's not how it works. Okay, so I think what it is we need to do first and foremost is to look at ourselves and say, okay, all these other components that probably are the reasons why this price of PMS is still a little high locally, what are they? Now, when we talk about removing the issue of subsidy, are we also talking about liberation of the market? Are we talking about total deregulation? How does this now come to affect this pricing? The questions to be asking ourselves now is if we didn't have regulation, if we had total deregulation, how would it have affected the price? Would it have may probably come down lower? Because probably if we were producing locally, right, the price of transportation would have been eliminated. The price of the first tranche of storage and second tranche of storage and internal transportation would also have been eliminated. You would have been talking about probably crude, you know, to your tank farms and tank farms to your filling stations. And even, you know, from the refinery, sometimes you can pipe straight to filling stations. So I think what it is we should be able to focus on here is not to, we must see the merit in this, and that's what's important. And the merit in this is that I think we're beginning to start a gradual, you know, shift of now focusing on what we can call our microeconomic stability, not taking harsh decisions or political decisions, taking decisions that are thought through, you know, that now take into consequence, of course, and consideration every other factor that now comes to what it is, you know, that is sold to the Nigerian public. That's my take on it.
Thanks for your explanation. Are you advocating total deregulation at this time?
I've always been an advocate of total deregulation, but I've always advocated it based on one or two things that should be on ground too. You must be able to build a proper social network, you know, to take the effects, you know, at least the initial effects of the regulation. We saw it in the telecoms industry. Today everybody's enjoying. You walk into a telecom shop, they're begging you to take 10 SIM cards. So we've had cases of successes in deregulation. We're seeing it in the power sector now. It's something that is gradual, but I think where the challenge comes is that period, you know, of lag. What do you do? How are you able to help people, you know, to weather the storms that definitely come with the regulation? Okay? But for me, and this is my personal opinion, I would like a free market where people are allowed, you know, to be able to run this thing, and then the government just does what it's supposed to do, which is what I think the director says they do here. Don't enforce, but regulate. And then they do it by making certain that you stay on course. So I am an advocate of the regulation that is driven by proper social security networks and programs.
Which takes us to the next point. We had partial deregulation about 3 years ago in January 2012, and the federal government proceeded to establish SureP. SureP, of course, has an amalgam of issues that it is dealing with, including the social safety net. But again, we also have to look at the social and psychological disposition of Nigerians. And this is a question I asked of Mr. Chukwu earlier. That namely, fine, we are seeing now low crude oil prices, one of the ingredients, as we very well illustrated, in the price of refined petroleum products. Nigerians, of course, would take it with a great deal of joy. Now, if prices go up, that additive, if it also goes up, and then tomorrow you say you want to increase the pump price of petrol products, what happens?
This is where public information, this is where instruments of engaging people, this is where inclusive governance becomes very key. This is where Nigerians must be aware of every decision, every step that is being taken. And that's why I say, instead of using crude, let us use support, so that the woman who is in her house now can be able to now look at her support and then say, this is what we are talking about here. So we must begin to explain these details to people so that they can get it correctly. First and foremost, SureP is a success. Anybody who says to you otherwise is probably, you know, not looking at the whole picture. SureP has intervened in critical sectors of the economy. Now, what it is we need to do as citizens is to make certain that what they say they have done, what they say they have expanded, this is where I think the civil societies, you know, and every other person who is a public analyst should be able to come in. You know, I think I'll be more comfortable with saying the Lokoja Abuja road, which has been lying fallow, which SureP claims is done. I have driven on that road and I see nothing. Some other person says to you, I am a road engineer or I am an architect, and I think the quality of that road does not, you know, is not commensurate with the amount of funds that are being thrown in there. Somebody says to you, all the maternities that SureP has claimed that they've established over the country have been there and there are no drugs. Okay, these are the issues. I think we've gotten to a point where we must begin to focus on issues in our country, more so that we've gotten into a time where there's a lot of gerrymandering, there's a lot of, you know, political mismatching and shouting and, you know, trying to now get people to take positions. But in this case, I think what we're focusing on is what are the merits or demerits of reducing and increasing. This is what I think the core of this conversation is. The merit is that as long as you are importing your PMS, you're going to be driven by market forces of demand and supply. You're going to be driven by storage, transportation, and all the other indices that make up how it gets into your shores. But if you begin to develop or produce locally. Even at that, even with local production, you can still introduce subsidy. I've said this severally. Subsidies can be production. But the moment you put it after production against a product, it becomes price differential. And the moment it becomes price differential, that is when you now start having the forces of supply and demand playing even more aggressively. So I think for me, what's very key here is that taking a cue from what government has done, first and foremost, we should give kudos to the government. But you see, again, too, this is another very funny thing about governance. Prices go high, everybody's in the streets. Prices are reduced, nobody's carrying placard to thank government. This is a challenge. This is what you need to bear, as a leader. No, we're not in the street now celebrating the government for reducing it by 10%. But you increase it by 5% tomorrow, trust me, somebody's going to say to you, we're shutting down the government.
Well, okay, thanks a lot. I mean, it's one of the points that we'll be discussing. That's the knock-on effect of the slash in the price of petrol from 97 to 87 naira. But let's return to Mr. George Osahon, Director of the Department of Petroleum Resources. Clearly, one of the sources of cost for refined petrol is importation. And Nigerians have always wondered why we have not added to the number of refineries that we have, even though some 18 or so investors received licenses. What is stopping us from going ahead? They have also heard sometimes about modular refineries. What is the big deal about setting up a refinery?
I think the big deal is about the normal margin that comes from refinery establishment. Quite unlike exploration and production of crude oil, which has a lot of upfront cost, but at the end of the day, you have a huge return because it's a volume business. If you're producing like 2,000 barrels of oil a day, the import cost for it, when you compare it, you find that that is why government is able to talk about, for example, if you're a newcomer, 67.5% tax. And if you have been there for quite some time, they say 85% tax. There's no other part of our economy where you have tax as high as that. But when it comes to refining products, it is not a business where you make such huge profit all over the world. And that is why you realize that in a place like America, most of the refineries, they were shutting down at the time. And people were buying them and stripping them and going to sell them up elsewhere. And that is why when Nigerians first started collecting licenses to build refineries, they thought part of that will include having to lift crude oil. But government made it very, very clear. We're not going to give you crude oil, which is supposed to go into a refinery, then you end up shipping it out of the country. But when people realize that, that is why as many as the 18 that you said collected licenses, they didn't do anything. And that's why we had to start all over again. But there are quite a number of steps that have been taken. For example, we know one or two people that have indicated interest, and which we know, based on their antecedents in Nigeria, they definitely would do something about it. And these are huge refineries that we're expecting to set up. One or two companies have also shown us what modular refineries can do. And maybe you should just wait a little bit for that, because I think government is going to do something about that very, very soon. There's this small company called Niger Delta Petroleum Resources. They are somewhere around Port Harcourt. They have a small field called Ogbele Field, where they establish what we call the topping plant. Topping plant is just a tiny refinery, if you like, because it has a set of products which doesn't have the same set of what we call slate as in a big refinery. For example, what they produce is essentially diesel and kerosene. But surprise, surprise, they are making so much money. They have quite a number of people there who are waiting in line to buy their products. But that hasn't reduced the fact that the margin you get from operating a topping plant or modular refinery or big refinery is varying from the norm. It's still small. And that is what is driving a lot of people. And don't forget, something like a refinery is not something you put in there and go to close your eyes and sleep. It's not possible. You have to make sure that in Nigeria now, even my mother knows about TAM. It's not supposed to be like that. If it's a privately run refinery, you know when to do your TAM. You cannot miss it. All the ingredients are there. When they're supposed to be done, who will do it, everything is set. And those are the issues where we don't have as many refineries as we expect to have.
Well, let me come back again to the question whether or not setting up a refinery is a big deal. You've given the background explanation that those initial licensees expected to be lifting crude oil, which government suspected might be shipped abroad rather than used locally. But Nigerians recall that during the Civil War, 1967 to 1970, Biafran engineers refine the crude that the Biafrans were using in the course of the war. And we have also seen, this time now, minus the very huge environmental hazard involved, the so-called artisanal refiners in the Niger Delta area. So people are wondering if it was possible during the Civil War, when bombs were landing all over the place, and now you're having these artisans who are busy refining in a very crude and dangerous manner, why we cannot have formal refineries in so short a time?
I don't think anybody wants to go to artisanal refineries or go into the one. A war economy is a different thing entirely. What kind of vehicles were we using at that time? That is one. Then two, we're not talking about the technology being a difficult one. The technology is there. So my understanding is you are referring to the technology that's so easy. So people cook what we call firewood refineries. They cook this thing, distill it just like they do ogogoro. I don't know if you remember those days, which is what we are doing. But at the end of the day, what happens? People use some of these things in their tanks. Those things knock. They use them elsewhere, and the engine spoils. I don't think that is what we want to go into. Since there's no deficiency in the technology that we can use in producing petroleum products, what we need to do is focus on people bringing in classic refineries to come and refine petroleum products. Like I did mention this tiny refinery that was brought in by Niger Delta, tiny refinery, but it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. And nobody has complained about the products coming from there. So I don't think we should worry about that. The technology is not an issue at all.
Okay, one point of obvious concern to Nigerians at this stage, petrol prices come down. They're wondering what has happened to diesel and kerosene, for instance, DPK.
Okay, let me talk about diesel first. Diesel is fully deregulated. So what Nigerians should be asking themselves is, what should be the price of diesel today compared to PMS? And if you ask me, at least up till last week when I bought diesel in Lagos, I bought it for 160 naira per litre. It hasn't changed.
And yet, crude oil prices have slashed. Exactly. And diesel is a derivative of crude oil.
Exactly.
So who should Nigerians be asking?
Well, the point is this. First and foremost, because it is fully deregulated, Nigerians should expect some reduction, just like I did say about PMS when we started. Now, what it means is that we should have consumer protection agencies to look at what's going on. Because whether you like it or not, there has been some reduction in price of crude. Therefore, it should directly impact on the price of diesel. But it's not happening.
Sorry, in the absence of a consumer agency intervening, does it then mean that profiteering can proceed, in that particular subsector of the oil and gas industry?
No, not necessarily. Just like the gentleman talked about the telecoms industry. Yes. What we expect to see going forward is the fact that these things are going to reduce. When people realize how much money can be made, what is still confusing the issue is diesel is deregulated, PMS is not deregulated, kerosene is not deregulated. When anybody is establishing a refinery, you're not going to say, okay, the diesel part of it, I will allow you to produce, the PMS part of it, I will shut it down. You don't do that. If everything is on the same platform, it becomes easy for competition to take its course. The law of supply and demand will take its course.
Okay, let's thank you, Mr. George Osahon, speaking to us from Abuja here. Let's return to the Lagos Network Center, where Mr. Johnson Chukwu, MD of Cowries Assets Limited. Mr. Chukwu, let's take a look very quickly at the knock-on effects of the slash in the price of PMS. Dr. Okengu indicated in the past, if the prices had gone up by now, Nigerians would have been on the streets, and transport fares would also have increased, and landlords would come demanding, higher rent from you. The knock-on effect always visible. Now there is a slash. Are we likely to see a positive knock-on effect in terms of reduction of some of the common services and goods that Nigerians buy?
Yes, absolutely. Like I mentioned earlier, the price of petrol has a pervasive effect on the general price level in the economy. It affects, through transportation and several other factors, it affects the price of goods and services. So we should expect that as price of a major input cost has come down, it should reflect on other elements of cost that the families consume. But having said that, I also want to make reference to the fact that, look, we shouldn't politicize the issue of price reduction in pump price. Basically, almost every country is reducing premium motor spirit. If you look at, on 1st of January, Ghana reduced the price of premium motor spirit by 10%. Kenya did that about a week ago, and we've seen several countries. In a deregulated market like US, we've seen price drop by more than 40%. But that is not to say that it's not commendable that government has done the right thing, which is to reduce the price to reflect the crude price. But I expect that average consumers will have the positive impact of that. It improve, obviously moderate the increasing trend in the inflation rate, and then improve the purchasing power of power of disposable income of Nigerians. So we should have that effect on the average citizen.
Well, just the final one from you. You've listened to Mr. Osahon explain already the circumstances surrounding the fact that we have licensees, who didn't proceed to establish refineries. What do you think is the disincentive, or what are the disincentives towards private establishment of refineries, even though they had licenses?
One single factor: the regulated prices of PMS and DPK, that is petrol and kerosene. If you have, like Osahon rightly said, if you are refining petroleum products and you can sell your AGO, that is diesel, at market price, but you cannot sell, you have to depend on the government charity, government patronage to take up your production of PMS and DPK, which are byproducts of same refinery. Then you cannot go into that business, because it depends on your relation with government that they can buy from you, and at the price, and they determine the price they'll buy from you. So those factors have constrained investors from setting up refineries. We need to fully deregulate. What I only think the government should do, which can actually be concession to the private sector, is to address the issue of pipeline, network of pipeline for crude and refined products, which are very weak today, and which will lead to a divergence in prices of petroleum products between the different localities outside where they are refined. If you deregulate today, you're going to see people buying petrol in price compared to what we buy in Lagos. So if we address the network of pipelines, which the government should rebuild and reactivate, of refined products and crude, then refinery could be set up anywhere, and the price will almost be at the same level around the whole country. So that's, I think, what we should do.
Okay, on that note, we'd like to thank Mr. Johnson Chukwu, Managing Director of Cowries Assets Limited, who joined us from the Lagos Network Center. Lagos Network Center. All right. In the Abuja studios here, Dr. Emeka Okongu, development economist. What's your final word, very quickly?
Well, I think it's all about value processing. We can actually make a lot of back end and front ends meeting in our oil sector by making certain that we also now target petrochemicals. We just not shouldn't be looking at fuel, PMS, diesel, kerosene. We should also be looking at taking it further downstream, or taking it further upstream, whichever way we want to look at it, and then make certain that we're targeting the petrochemicals that we need to actually unlock our industrial base. Today is all about petrochemicals, and it comes from the crude oil. So the moment we're able to get that done, I am certain that whatever price differentials, whatever challenges, whatever indexes, can be managed at some middle. And then it becomes a question of, because we have enough demand here, demand will not be an issue. The moment we can be able to now, solve the challenges of making certain that we're able to stretch it as much as we can, get as much as we can out of a barrel of crude, then prices, of course, will stabilize, and then competition will kick in, and they will start falling naturally. Okay.
On that note, we'd like to thank Dr. Emeka Okongu on the petrochemical issue. Of course, you are aware of the Ogidigbe city, which has been proposed for that. The president was supposed to have laid the foundation late last year, and we do hope that will come on course anytime soon. Emeka Okongu, once again, thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thanks for listening.
Okay. Now, Mr. George Osahon, Director, Department of Petroleum Resources. Final word on this.
Well, I'd like to appeal to all our petroleum products marketers to assist and make sure that they comply, so that the kind gesture of government is not lost on the altar of profiteering. That would be my last word.
Okay, on that note, we thank you as well, Mr. Osahon, for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria, which is reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Do not forget, we still have a conversation on the role of CSOs, that is to say, civil society organizations, in ensuring free, fair, and credible elections. Stay tuned.
After a dry night in Pampers, babies can achieve so many things. Introducing new and improved Pampers for a dry and comfortable night of sleep, thanks to our new stretchy sides and Superjar that absorbs and locks in wetness better than other diapers. So your baby starts the day dry, making every morning one to be proud of. New Baby Dry. Dryness guaranteed or your money back.
We love tasty food and drinks, but we know they can stain our teeth. And we don't want people to think our teeth are not healthy. That's why new Oral-B Pro Health with Whitening is specially designed to remove everyday stains and still give you that Oral-B all-round protection, leaving you with strong teeth everyone can see.
Smile, smile, smile.
New Oral-B Pro Health with Whitening, healthier, stronger teeth in 1 week. Now with more whitening power.
Mama's cooking. Let's help her. Wait. My mama says before touching food, you should wash your hands with soap. But my hands are clean. See germs, but they're everywhere.
Look under special blue light. To protect against germs, I recommend regularly use soap. Safeguard removes millions of germs and additionally it inhibits regrowth of germs that might cause skin rashes for hours.
That is why me, mommy, daddy, and my brother regularly use Safeguard.
Supported by the African Medical Association.
In 2013,
background,
Mikel of Chelsea Football Club and Super Eagles midfielder was crowned Nigeria's King of the Pitch, and His Excellency Senator Leo Imoke CON Football Friendly Governor of the Year. Who will be Nigeria's King of Football? Matchmakers Consult International and Nigerian Television Authority NTA presents the Nigerian Pitch Awards 2014 and its Night of Honors. Who will dethrone Vincent Iyama as Goalkeeper of the Year? Can Emmanuel Emenike remain Nigeria's Striker of the Year? Will Kano Pillars remain Nigeria's best club side? In 2013, you voted Super Eagles coach Stephen Kesh as Coach of the Year, Toyin Ibitoye Football Journalist of the Year TV, Adeojo Kere Football Journalist of the Year Print, Bimbo Adeola Football Journalist of the Year Radio, Chief Felix Anyansi Manager of the Year, Guinness Nigeria PLC Best Corporate Sponsor of Football of the Year, and Lagos State, a state with the best grassroots football development program. Nigeria Pitch Awards, Nigeria's own football award.
Introducing new and improved Pampers Baby Dry with Stretch. Our stretchy sides are designed to expand and contract with your baby's tummy. Pampers lock wetness in for a dry and comfortable night's sleep. New Baby Dry. Dryness guaranteed or your money back.
All right, you're welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria. We just had our conversation on the reduction of the price of premium motor spirit petrol from 97 to 87 naira. Now we are taking our second topic for this morning, namely the role of civil society organizations in ensuring free, fair, and credible elections. We have three guests to discuss this with us, two of them from the Abuja studios here, and our third guest from the Port Harcourt Network Center. First, let me welcome Mr. Lazarus Apir of the Transition Monitoring Group. Mr. Apir, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigerians.
And also joining us here in Abuja is Mr. Samson Itodo, is Head of Research, Policy and Advocacy of the Youth Initiative for Advocacy and Growth and Advancement. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much, and good morning, Nigeria.
Okay, and from the Port Harcourt Network Center, we'll be joined by Barrister Dennis Okwakbam. He's the chairman, right there on the screen, there's the chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association Port Harcourt branch. Barrister Okwakbam, welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria.
Let's begin with our guests in the Abuja studios, Mr. Apir and Mr. Itodo. But first, Mr. Apir, one of the issues that we've seen in the course of this election, the elections are about 3 or so weeks away, there is a request, there is a yearning for issue-based campaign. Why are we not seeing those issues and the how of how to deal with them if anybody or any party wins?
Thank you.
I remember last week I had this social media engagement where we were talking about how to ask for votes, and this problem came up, and we were saying, why are we being faced with negative campaigns and personality attack campaigns rather than issue-based? Elsewhere, or what you would expect, is to hear people mention where they stand on religion, issues of sex, issues of environment, issues of unemployment. We are not hearing people advocate very clearly how they will address some of these concerns in our next Nigeria. And then it worried me. But the solution to that problem is not far-fetched. Nigerians are not demanding to hear this. Nigerians go to rally and they just listen to whatever it said and they applaud and they walk away. Nigerians do not summon these aspirants into town hall meetings and ask them, what do you have to do with this water problem we have in our community? They wait until they are invited, and then they go to rallies, and then they hear all these negative campaigns, and they applaud. To me, it looks like the people on the stage are clowns, and the crowd here is getting entertained. No issues discussed, because nobody is demanding for issues. You and I can talk about why are we lacking issue-based campaigns. But the masses who troop to these rallies, they don't ask. So until Nigerians realize the need to demand for issues on how these leaders, if elected, will address these issues, we will not be getting very issue-based campaigns anytime soon.
Okay, Barrister Dennis Okwakman, chairman of the NBA in Port Harcourt, you were right there a moment ago on the screen. What's your take on the apparent, if not obvious, absence of rigorous issues in the electioneering season?
Okay, I think that what is lacking is basically education. My colleague just referred to a few things back now, but I think that what's been lacking is the fact that we haven't quite sufficiently educated the electorate. And if you ask me, I say we should have actually broken down the fact of educating the people into two areas. One should have been the fact that we need to participate in the process. In other words, you need to get your permanent voter's card, you do all that. And then the second arm of it would have been to say you need to participate after listening to the candidates and discover or find out what they're actually going to be offering you. So the problem is that we have failed a bit in these two areas. One of which, till now, you still have issues of people not being certain whether they can vote with the temporary cards that they have, and then those who are internally displaced, whether they can participate in the process at all. So that's been lacking, and unfortunately, and my idea about this education, two areas of this education is, first, we should have actually concluded with the process of those who are going to participate in the process, and then by now, we should actually be focusing on educating the people on why they need to participate and what they should demand from the candidates. So I think we've mixed it up, and there's a lot of confusion out there. That's the problem. So a lot of people know these issues, but there's a lot of mix-up. Should we be participating? And if we're participating, what should we be looking out for? So there's a lot of confusion, and that's where we've mixed it up a little bit. That's my view.
Take a look at it again. I mean, you identified the gap in educating or enlightening or mobilizing the citizenry to demand issues. But I mean, what can be done in the lead up to the elections? And what is the role of various civil society organizations and NGOs?
I'll give you an example. Last week, I think on the 14th, the NBA at the national level held a seminar. They organized a seminar, except that it coincided with the one that another group also held the same day. Now, we have a committee at the national level called the Voter Education Committee, headed by a senior advocate of Nigeria. They held a seminar on the 14th and invited nearly people from all walks of life. And they have handed out an instruction to all the branches to replicate the same process at the state levels. On my own, in Port Harcourt, I plan to not only replicate, but expand it a bit and take it to the local government areas. So the only challenge is that I think that we should have actually been doing this voter thing, this education thing before now, because it's less than 30 days to the election. So we haven't quite done enough. And the other challenge that we have is one of funding. Because if we were to replicate what national has asked us to do at the state level, I'm not certain that we can go to all the 23 local government areas in Rivers State, because cost will be a big factor. But we're going to do a bit here in Port Harcourt first and hopefully expand it. So the point that I'm making is, what we need to firstly address is the fact that we need to tell Nigerians that they need to be prepared to vote. That's one area. And right now, I'm not quite certain that we've quite got that, but no time is late. To the time available to us, that's what we need to massively do. Get people to secure the fact that they have cards, and then get INEC again to make it clear that you can vote with the temporary card or the permanent one. When you go past that area, the second phase of our training or education will now be that we need to participate in the process. And when you participate, you should look out for the issues. Like my colleague at the studio said, we need to basically say or ask the candidate, for instance, the one that concerns me, how are we going to get the courts open in Rivers State when the national cause of the strike? How are we going to fix our roads? So there are two areas, but the challenge that we have is that it's all mixed up. But I'm conscious of the fact that it's mixed up, and what I'm going to do when I replicate what national has asked me to do is to separate them. Unfortunately, I don't have the luxury of time, but I would have firstly advocated that we separate the two. Firstly, get the people to understand they need to be ready to participate. Because right now, you hear that a lot of people still don't have the cards. A friend of mine who registered initially at some primary school, I think Orominike Primary School in D-Line, had been there a few times, and you don't see anybody. So as it is now, he has no card, and that's a lawyer. He has no card, so there's a chance that he will not participate in the process. And you know, you never know, it may come down to that his vote. So there's that challenge, and INEC hasn't done enough, and we also haven't pushed INEC enough to explain why some areas, have people who are going to be disenfranchised because they don't have cards. My friend that I mentioned has been there several times. There's no notice anywhere saying, oh, this center has been closed, you need to go to this other center to get the card. And only recently, the House of Representatives basically pushed INEC to get people or to allow people who have a temporary cards to vote. So we still haven't got past that area, and it's less than 30 days to the election. So we need to clarify that part.
Barrister Okwakbam, thank you for speaking to us from the Port Harcourt Network Center. But we are pausing you in the meantime and returning to the Abuja studios where Samson Itodo has been sitting and waiting. I introduced him earlier. Mr. Itodo, let's take a look at this. What's happening? We're not driving the issues or what?
Well, when you talk about not driving the issues, I think there has been a push on the part of citizens to demand accountability from politicians and those who actually seek their votes at different quarters. I just think that we're not doing more because if you look at the political campaigns in the pre-2011 elections, you discover that there is actually an improvement with the nature of our campaigns in 2015. So the incumbent is up displaying and informing citizens about the efforts that they are making in different sectors of the economy. If you look at the different political campaigns, particularly at the presidential level, the PDP has told consistently what she has done for this country for the period of time that this administration has been in office. Looking at the transport sector, the youth, if you look at even trying to revamp the economy and also in the education sector. On the part of the opposition as well, you've also seen critical questions that they've also asked, particularly with respect to the economy, with respect to also all the sectors that actually characterize the entire polity. And you've also seen them providing some sort of alternative. So the APC, for instance, does have its own manifesto uploaded on its website, and they have all these issues articulated therein, as well as the PDPs. I think what is of utmost importance is the fact that as citizens, because I don't want us to limit the conversation of the role of civil society to just an aggregation of NGOs that actually come together. Of course, civil society is just like the third sector apart from government and business. So even media organizations, as well as citizens, as well as different groups, all form part of this civil society, and we do have a collective role to ask critical questions. I think the point is there a meeting point between those who campaign, those who seek our votes, to meet with even the voters? First is promoting the culture of public debates. the National Assembly in the ongoing electoral reform had proposed an amendment to the Electoral Act that compels candidates seeking votes to actually participate in public debates. Yes, debate is not in our culture, but we are seeing that actually gradually becoming part of our lifestyle. The Nigerian Election Debate Group and other groups who are actually hosting debates. We think that it's important that this debate shouldn't just be limited at the national level. It's important even at the state level and at the local government level, as well as all different levels of governance. But there has to be a platform. Social media, for instance, provides that platform as well, because politicians have taken on social media to drive their political campaigns. So you have people on cyberspace who ask these critical questions. But those who are even on cyberspace, do they constitute the bulk of the voting population? Absolutely no. So it's important that citizens get to ask these questions. And what civil society perhaps does is to articulate or aggregate these views in some charter of demands and use their platforms as a vehicle for driving advocacy around critical issues of governance, because they just simply help amplify the voices of citizens and voters.
Let's try to drive one point. Do you get a sense that we often tend to focus on the so-called national issues, whereas there are very critical issues at the subnational level, state and local level?
Absolutely right. We focus so much at the center, and which raises a question of the kind of federalism that we actually practice, because you have a lot of power, and people do have a justification for actually focusing at the center, because there's a lot of power at the center. The center controls a lot of things. So it's better to focus, for them, some schools of thought though, believe that it's better to focus on the center, channel your advocacy, because every directive that comes from the center actually is complied with when you go to the state level. But that's not the entire concept of democracy, because politics, in its real sense, it's local. Now, the local government level, it's supposed to be the closest, the very closest unit of government to the people. But that's totally not the tale or the narrative of our own polity, which really needs to change. And perhaps that underscores the need why the National Assembly, in its wisdom, adopted the entire concept of local government autonomy. But too bad it went to the states, and the states actually voted no, that there's no need to actually grant local governments autonomy, because you need to institutionalize the local government system so that citizens at the local government level can actually participate. The reality is everyone, the 170 millions of Nigerians that we have currently, or even more, cannot all engage institutions in Abuja. It is practically not possible. We all cannot engage the National Assembly. We all cannot engage the press. Is our local government, is also the state government. And the fact that the weak institutions that we have also accounts for the reasons why you have citizens focus more on the issues at the national level, and which is some paradigm that really needs to change. We need to make our institutions work for the good of the people at every level, so that people can actually engage the institutions wherever they are.
Okay. Lazarus Appeal of the Transition Monitoring Group. I just asked Mr. Etodo the question whether there seems to be some undue focus on the so-called national issues, rather than also dealing with state and local government issues, because all politics, as agreed, is local in the end.
Yeah, very, very true. Sadly, there seems to be more concentration at the federal level, but uniquely, this 2015 election, a lot has been going on at all levels, as evidence shows. For instance, the civil society, and in most of the voter education that most donors are supporting at the time, they want to see engagements at the senatorial district level, at the state levels, and all of that. In fact, most of the voter education funds or grants in this current election have focused on states and down to senatorial districts. So it's a gradual shift that has to happen, because for a fact, those of us in Abuja and the engagements in Abuja do not seem to be sufficient to inform people on how to vote and how to engage the process. So there has to be the shift, and it's beginning to come in.
Okay, just one last one I would like to pop. What are your concerns about next month's elections, and what should civil society do to ensure free, fair, and credible polls?
Okay, now I speak directly for Transition Monitoring Group. We at the TMJ, we are very concerned about the February series of elections. One, we should have been very comfortable with the level of preparedness of all stakeholders. That includes the INEC, who is the chief umpire in this instance. But again, as we speak, there is this clarity, or there is this subtle agreement that PVCs would still be distributed, maybe on a rolling basis up until even election day. Now, how do we get quickly informed Nigerians to have this awareness, so that even if they do not have the PVC, they don't stay at home, they're able to come to the polling unit. Perhaps they could pick up their and be able to participate. We also have struggle with apathy. People shying away because their votes are not being counted, or leadership is not bringing dividends of democracy to them, and all of that. That is why the Quick Count project has become a toast for us. It's become a gold standard for us to engage the process. And we're using this tool to also appeal to Nigerians to have confidence once again in the process. Because at the end of the day, Quick Count will enable us to independently verify the official result for the presidential election. Now, for those who stay away from the polls because their votes will not count, we are pleading that we have a tool to ensure your vote will count. Because at the end of the day, there will be an independent verification of the official results. So if you truly cast your ballot, then there is a process in place to ensure it counts. We have been engaging in the pre-election environment and talking to stakeholders as how they are engaging the process, especially in the area of voter education. It's everywhere in Nigeria, but at not very good scale. And we have reached out to INEC, to the concerned agencies, and to inform ourselves at the CSO that we need to do more. New election guidelines or voting procedures have been articulated by the INEC. We need to quickly send this out. That is why for us we have incorporated it in our voter education, we have put it in our election observation manuals that we are sending all across Nigeria, because people need to know.
Okay, Lazarus Api, well, we'd like to go over again to the Port Harcourt Network Center and then take the last comment from Barrister Dennis Okmanam. Okwakpam. Okmanam is a place in Niger Delta, very close to Asaba. Okwakpam, Barrister Okwakpam, chairman of the Port Harcourt NBA. What are your concerns about next month's elections, and what can civil society do to help address those concerns?
If we do what we need to do now, I think that there's a chance that we're going to have smooth, easy, and credible elections. What we need to do is educate, and educate our people. It is important, as I said earlier on, that they know that it is not just about the next person, it is about their lives, the lives of their children, and they need to do whatever is necessary first to vote. Second angle is that we need to educate our people sufficiently about the issues they should look out for. What we need to do along those lines is to provide the framework. The man in my village needs to know that the councillor he's going to vote for and the local government chairman is the next person that he needs to hold accountable if he has no road and light and water. Now, when you go past that, you know, that the person needs to know that it's not just merely rhetoric. What you see now is, what we're experiencing now is that there's a wide disconnect between the man who ultimately gets the position and the people. You know, so if the people were aware, if the people are really aware, as I'm advocating, you discover that, you know, when the election comes, like we have now, and people are going around and campaigning, they are thinking the person who is seeking for office won't say. The other day I heard somebody say, oh, my party is going to eradicate poverty. And for me, if we were sufficiently aware, nobody will say a thing like that. But what you see is that the person anticipates that the person does not know enough. So, we need to do now. I have my concerns, but I think that within the time, if we educate our people along the two areas that I've tried, for us in our Nigerian Bar Association, as I've said, we're going to organize this seminar as National has asked us to do. We're going to collaborate with the security agencies, basically to say to the people, there's no need to allow somebody use you, because it is about your future as well. It's not going to be enough to say somebody gives me 100,000 naira to play some role in the election, as if you are removed from it, as if it is not about you. But if somebody were to give you 100,000 naira to carry some gun and harass somebody or threaten somebody, after the elections, what happens? The only way to make sense if he gives you resources or funds that will last you your lifetime. But that's not quite the case, and it's never happened that way. So what our people need to know, that this is going to be about them. And when you go through this process, what happens when eventually we get the people who will be elected is going to be for 4 years.
Okay, on that note, we'd like to thank Dennis Okparam as the chairman of the Port Harcourt branch of the Nigerian Bar Association. Thank you for speaking to us from Port Harcourt. Okay, we have also had with us in the Abuja studios, Mr. Lazarus Apir is the program manager of Transition Monitoring Group. Mr. Apir, thank you for being with us. And lastly, well, of course, we thought we were going to have the opportunity of asking him a last question, but we'll have to sign off now because my producer is telling me that time is up. Mr. Samson Itodo is head of research, policy, and advocacy of the Youth Initiative for Advocacy, Growth, and Advancement. Mr. Itodo, thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
It's been a pleasure being here.
And that's the way it's been today on Good Morning Nigeria, the first edition for the month. We thank you for being with us. My name is Kingsley Osalola. The program returns tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning.
yadda za a samu cikakken ci gaba.
Ìwàásù ẹni ọ̀wọ̀ Nicholas